Hi there. I'd like to start by asking you a question. Are you open to some ideas on how to grow your business and thrive during these challenging times? Great. The title of this presentation is Freeze, Fumble, or Fight: Leading Through Crisis. No question right now, COVID-19 has our attention. The good news is that it is not an extinction level event and we will get through this. The bad news is that it is not going to be the last crisis we are going to have to prepare for and lead through in the months and years ahead. Examples include things like more pandemics, economic meltdowns like the banking crisis in 2008-9, or runaway inflation, natural disasters like hurricanes, forest fires, tornadoes, and floods, business disasters that could be everything from a local flood or fire to an online attack from hackers or ransomware. Did you know that over 90% of businesses that experience some ransomware never recover to pre-ransomware levels? Finally, are you prepared for personal disasters or tragedies, from accidents to sudden illnesses for you, key staff, or family members? Now, I'm not going through this list as a scare tactic. It is simply a reality that as a business owner, you must be prepared for it. Taking the ostrich approach and keeping your head in the sand saying, la, 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 is not going to cut it when or if any of these ever happen to you. I know many of you are already thinking or even saying out loud, I do not have time for that. I'm too busy just trying to keep my business going. What this means is all the investments you have made in your business suggest you bought yourself a job. Now is not the time to get into this, but as long as you spend all your time in the business without committing to time on the business, your long-term success could be significantly limited. Perhaps your business has grown during COVID. That's awesome. But be honest, was it because you had planned and prepared for this type of thing? Or did you take action very early to adjust and adapt? Or is it simply a fortunate circumstance? So who am I, and why am I asking for you to listen to what I have to say? As you can see, I'm an Army veteran with over 25 years of regular and reserve force service. I've also got over 30 years of business experience with an emphasis on sales and marketing, and have worked at the executive levels for both private and public companies. I've also been self-employed, and I'm a published author. Most importantly, I'm a husband of almost 40 years, a father of 2 great sons, and a grandfather of soon to be 4. Here's some great news. Just in the US, there are over 7.2 million small businesses, and 98% of them have fewer than 100 full-time employees. The bad news is 90% of them will fail within 10 years. So if your business is older than that, congratulations, because you've beaten the odds. By the way, these are pre-COVID numbers. Digging a bit deeper into why so many fail, it really comes down to 4 very hard numbers. 78% lack a solid plan. I am constantly shocked at how few businesses I work with have no plans in place at all. They just sort of wing it on the fly. 73% of business owners are just too optimistic about their sales numbers. Most owners overestimate what they can do in the next 6 to 12 months and underestimate what they can do in the next 3 to 5 years. The key is having in place the plans and the financial runway to get to that 3 to 5 year mark. 77% of businesses do not price their products or services properly to maximize their gross margins. I've always taught that if the only conversation you're having is about price, you're probably having the wrong conversation and maybe with the wrong person. And finally, and this one really hits home, 70% of people do not ask for help, or when they do, they ask the wrong person or people. As an example, if you want job advice, don't ask someone who is either un- or underemployed. The former president of Harvard said this: if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Okay, so let's change gears and speak directly about what you can do when facing a crisis like COVID-19 pandemic. I coined this phrase way back in 1988 while on a 1-year technical project management course with the British Army. They were implementing a new project management system, and we were constantly being told the old mantra, if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. In response, I came up with management is the science of reaction, leadership is the art of action. So what about the crisis? You have three options, namely you can freeze and fail, fumble and maybe survive, or you can fight and thrive. For the rest of this presentation, I am going to assume the first two are non-starters and focus entirely on your decision to fight and thrive. This is really important. You don't have to like this, but you really must accept it. The new norm will not be the old norm. Too many people and owners are saying things like, when things get back to normal like it used to be, stop thinking like that. In some rare cases, the new normal might be like the old normal, but overall, the new normal will be completely different. Your number one priority should be to try and figure out what your new normal will look like and to get in front of it now. Let's start with some immediate actions you should take. First, you need to start with your mindset, and I will go into this in more detail in a minute. You need to set your focus. You need to stay in the game. Even if you have to slow some things down, you cannot go to zero, as the odds are you will not come back at all. And finally, as I have already talked about, you need to seek help. As to mindset, here are three key things to consider. Be decisive and not impulsive. In other words, act, do not react. This really ties directly into the difference between managing and leading. You need to be the leader, especially if you have employees. You must also have an abundance and not a scarcity mindset. What does that mean? Look at the first four letters of scarcity and then add an E and a D and you get scared. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be uncomfortable, but it is not okay to be scared. Fear is contagious and spreads like wildfire, but guess what? So is confidence and belief. Here's an example I like to give about this. In the peak summer months of July and August, it is typical that 25% of all people are on vacation at any given time. Most of my salespeople used to say to me, everyone's on vacation, I just can't get anything done. Well, that's a scarcity mindset. The abundance mindset says 75% of the people are out there, and I just need to work a bit harder to figure out who is that I can sell to. As a leader, what are some critical things to consider? First of all, remember that indecision leads directly to paralysis. In the absence of clear and concise direction, most people vacillate and do nothing. Indecision is the root cause of procrastination. You must have empathy and reassure both your employees and your customers. Pretending the crisis is not happening is not the right approach. I'll come back to this in a few minutes. Only make promises you can keep. Remember the old adage to under-promise and over-deliver. Finally, you need to make the tough decisions now or as soon as possible. Putting off the inevitable only makes the problem worse. Let's get back to the idea of seeking help. I know you have all heard this before. Pride cometh before a fall. Put your ego in your back pocket or leave it at home or lock it in the car. Nobody is an expert in everything, and you need to have the best advice possible to make the good decisions. Information is free. Just ask Google. A cautionary note, though, is to remember that when something is free, it's often regarded as having no value. That's not always true. This presentation is free, and I sure hope you find it offers value. What you have to do is make sure the free info you are getting is from a credible and respected source. Really beware of opinions. Everyone has one, and often their opinion is based on everything but the facts and a detailed knowledge of the subject. If you need advice on marketing, don't ask someone who has spent their whole career as an accountant. You ask the accountant for financial advice. When you seek help, make sure you look for a return on that investment. Education is not an expense. It is an investment, and it deserves an ROI. Is there any type of guarantee? Far too often you'll hear, oh, I can do that, and I've done it dozens of times. Well, my advice is to proverbially be from Missouri, the show me state. Ask them to prove it either with references or with a guarantee or both. Next, I want to talk about the importance of planning. One of the reasons far too many business owners do not have comprehensive plans in place for a crisis, or in some cases even day-to-day business, is because they do not know how to prepare a plan. In a minute, I'm going to walk you through a planning process that is simple, yet can address any situation you might face. This is different from pure financial planning, which is in many ways just about the numbers, but what feeds where those numbers come from. So even a good financial plan, whether it is a cash gap plan, revenue and profit plan, or break-even plan, has to be inspired and driven something more than just numbers. Before trying to figure out the how, you must first determine the what or the why. To understand this, you have to realize that plans are not created in isolation. They are created to support or implement a decision. So what are you trying to decide? That is the what or the why. Remember the old adage, focus on the why, and you can figure out the how. For a crisis, you may simply be trying to do something like, in the event of a major crisis that impacts my ability to maintain my existing customers, how do I replace them with new customers? If you go online, you will find literally hundreds of sites that offer planning tools or processes, some of them highly specific to unique situations or challenges. By all means, do your research. What I teach is highly flexible and can be easily scaled to any size organization or any size problem. The fundamentals remain the same. In my book, Sales Leadership, Distinctions with a Difference, I actually provide a real example of working through the process in a lot of detail. In the end, planning is part art, part science. It takes hard work and focused efforts, but it can be done. Here's the power of planning. It forces you to analyze all the options available, and that options analysis drives the development of contingencies. I learned a very long time ago that even the best plan does not fully survive the first interaction with the market or a customer or a crisis. This is key. The process of diligently looking at all options and contingencies allows you to quickly pivot to plan B, C, D, or Z. Taking it to the extreme, you can do so-called wargaming of your plans to evaluate and gain insight into how and when to make these pivots and how those pivots will address the challenges faced. So here's a planning framework I learned years ago and has withstood the test of time for literally hundreds of years. To make a decision, you must first select your what or your why or your objectives or your goal. Call it what you want. Once that is clearly defined, which means it is specific and unambiguous, you need to determine what are the factors that influence or affect the objective. If your objective is, as I noted earlier, to replace my existing customers with new customers, a simple factor could be, what is my ideal customer profile? Another could be, where do these potential customers live and how do they buy now? You need to learn how to ask the question, so what, until it drives you nuts. For example, if a factor is, my ideal customer buys online, and you ask the question, so what, you might conclude, I must have an online store. So what? I do not have the skills or staff in place now to create an online store. So what? I must find someone to do this. So what? Hopefully this simple example gives you the gist of how this plays out. When you get to the point where you can no longer ask, so what, you have effectively come to conclusions that flow from one or more factors. These conclusions lead you to options, and in this example, that can include hiring a new employee or contracting this work to be done. Once you have options, you have a basis to make a decision, and then the plan flows naturally from the whole process. I could and I should, and I probably will do a separate workshop just on planning, but the message here is based on the tried and true adage that, most people do not plan to fail. They just fail to plan. Crisis leadership is more than doing a single plan. It really is a series of plans and contingencies and needs to be driven from the top down. What I mean here is start with a strategic, very high-level plan. This defines and forces you to then create a series of tactical plans that can include things like a revenue and a profit plan, a cash flow plan, a marketing plan, a sales plan, etc. If you have a team of subordinate leaders reporting to you as the owner, you can delegate many of these plans to those leaders, but they must all fit into your overarching strategic plan. Finally, you must execute on those plans, and when you do, you must monitor progress. Measure using key performance indicators, adjust as necessary, and adapt as required. Putting this all together is the foundation for everything. Moving on, let's talk about some specific actions you need to take care of as soon as possible. First, you need to protect your customer base. You should already know that your best customer is an existing customer, and the cost of acquiring new customers can be very high, so keep the ones you've got. To do that, you have to strengthen and solidify your relationships with them. The best way to do that is to actually over-communicate, even if you do not have a lot of new information to share. You absolutely must acknowledge the reality of the crisis and be empathetic. Falling back on my sales training, this fits perfectly with one of the best ways to overcome objections using the feel, felt, found approach. When someone offers an objection or a concern about your offer, you say, "I know how you feel." When I first saw or heard or learned of this, I felt the same way. Rather than disagreeing or being argumentative with them, you agree and show empathy. This makes them much more open when you finish with, "When I did my research," or whatever, "let me tell you what I found." Finally, you need to demonstrate through your communications and relationship building with your customers or your employees that you are resilient and you are competent and you will be here for the long term. Nobody wants to follow or trust someone who does not know where they are going or how they're going to get there. Now that you are working to solidify your base, your next step, which can be done in parallel, is to focus on expanding your audience. These are your prospects who may become your next customers. It might sound counterintuitive, but this is more important than revenue growth or expansion at this time. The crisis marketing plan you created before now gets kicked into overdrive. With COVID-19 still raging, advertising costs are way down. Now, they have come back a bit as things have started to reopen and get going, but they are by no means back to where they were pre-COVID. Key decisions you need to make are how much to spend and where or how. Also be prepared where you can to offer things at a preferred rate or even for free for first-time buyers. You must do this carefully, but the objective is to add incredible value and lock those customers and even prospects onto you. So when they can or do open their wallets and increase their spend, they will do it with you. In all your communications, whether it with paid ads or organically and free on social media, your website, and through other marketing initiatives, you should engage your prospects and customers in the conversation they are having. This goes back to acknowledging the crisis. If you are in complete denial that it is real, or if you are tone deaf to the conversations the majority of your customers are having, then you're not going to be successful. It really is that simple. Now, to be clear, this is about mirroring your tone and messaging and imaging to the conversations your customers are having. Knowing your ideal customer is critical to doing this really well. Don't lose sight of this next point. Right now, salesperson direct access to your customers and prospects is at an all-time low. Perhaps this is not an issue for your business, depending on how you sell, but is for the majority of businesses, especially those that depend on business-to-business sales. Given this, you need to make sure you allow your customer to buy on demand or remotely, or both, and that really means with online tools in most cases. When you cannot put a salesperson in front of a prospect or customer, the next best thing is to use video. It is the best storytelling and messaging medium available. You don't need expensive or fancy production studios. Just use your phone. The message and content is way more important than the quality of the video. This has been proven over and over again. When you do this, remember to not avoid the tricky or delicate stuff that is best done in person, namely handling pricing and competitive issues. This fits into the old saying that you can deliver good news any way you want, but you should always deliver bad news, like the tricky stuff, in person. It's also much easier to do when you have strong differentiators and a guarantee in place to separate you from the competition. For this to work, you must know your numbers, and I don't just mean your financials. I earlier talked about the need for KPIs or key performance indicators, and this is where they come into play. By knowing your numbers, you have something to measure and manage to give you the necessary info to adjust and adapt. My advice is to track everything at the beginning. There is no such thing as too much information. Some of it may prove to be less important or relevant, but don't go down the road for weeks only to realize you are missing key data to drive a critical decision. In a crisis, one of the most important numbers you must have is your runway. What is your monthly burn rate? What is your monthly shortfall? And how much money do you have in the bank or available through credit to overcome that shortfall, and for how long? Now, here is a key tip that most do not understand. You do not have to make huge improvements to all your KPIs to survive. By understanding your business and your numbers, did you know that by simply incrementally improving 5 standard and key metrics in any business by as little as 10%, you can effectively double your net, not your gross, profits? Under normal circumstances, I ask owners if it would be okay if we took a year to do this. But it has and can be done in weeks or months depending on the business and the owner. I call this the profit equation, and until you have seen it, it really seems far-fetched, but it's absolutely provable. The last specific action to take in a crisis is really dependent on the type of business you have. Some industries and businesses have seen their activity and revenue go through the roof during COVID, and their biggest challenge is managing that growth. This can create a unique set of challenges. Outside of those businesses, an overwhelming number of businesses have not been as busy as they would like, and their staff have downtime. If this is your business, use this downtime to do things like improving soft skills with lots of training. Take the time to master technology. Under COVID, the adoption of work from home or remote technologies has gone through the roof, and owners that were highly resistant to implementing or mastering this technology pre-COVID are now fully on board. As a leader, do not ignore the importance of both physical and mental well-being for yourself and your family and your team. You need to be in top form, and so does your team, to operate at a high level, not just during the crisis, but when its end is in sight and you turn on the afterburners. I hope I have offered you some valuable information you can immediately put to use in your business. Thank you for your time and attention. You may be asking, okay, what's the catch, or even better, so what? There is no catch. If you would be interested in what your profit equation would look like and how much of that doubling of net income in what timeline is achievable in your business, then reach out to me for a 15 to 20-minute introductory call. I work with a proven framework called the 5 Steps to Freedom that over the last 20 years has literally helped thousands of small business owners like you take their businesses to the next level. Within the 5 steps are 22 silver bullets that fit into the 3 critical categories of time, team, and money. Flowing from this is the completion of the profit equation. Once you see and understand this and how it impacts your business, you'll be in a position to make a decision about whether business coaching is for you. Remember, you really need to seek help, so the real question is whether I can be that help or not. To book a 15-minute call, go to takeactionresults.com/15-minute or email wayne@takeactionresults.com. Regardless of your decision to connect with me or not, I want to wish you the best of success. Thank you for your time.